Welcome to summer programs. You've heard me talk about this in the roadmap. So, how are you going to actually spend your summers? Maybe 3 summers, maybe less for some of you. So, why should you care about how you spend your summers? So, top programs, Ivies, top 30 universities, BSMDs, they all care about how you're spending your time over the summer, right? And they ideally like you to do elite summer programs during that period. That time helps you build your niche. So, when we were talking about developing your niche and developing your narrative and thinking about what specifically you want to do within medicine or healthcare in the future, you don't really have a whole lot of time during the year to do this. You have classes, clubs, a bunch of other things. But the summer is where you get ahead. The summer is where you put in all this work so that you can cruise a little bit later during the year. Now, research and clinical experience give you stories for essays and interviews. What you do over the summer, especially if it's related to your narrative, actually gives you content for what you'll end up writing about in your supplemental essays and your postal statements. This is where a lot of these things come from. The issue with not planning for this is that you've just wasted 9 months out of 36. Again, you have, about if you're having like 3 months every summer, that's a lot of time for you not to plan that out. Okay. And you'll end up playing catch up during the school year. Again, like I said, you put in that work during the summer so that you can just execute during the year. But a lot of the figuring out and a lot of the foundational work for a lot of these activities happens during the summer. And honestly, the reason that there's so much emphasis put on your summer programs and how you spend your summer is because this is the time that you have the most freedom with how you spend it. And how you spend it communicates something to these programs and these schools that you're applying to. Because during the year, you're going to class, you're doing clubs, a lot of it is prescribed already what you're doing. But during the summer, how are you choosing to spend that free time, right? And it says a lot about you. All right, so in order for you to understand how to apply to these programs, you need to know the 3 tiers of summer programs. Okay, and I'm going to start by talking about increasing impressiveness, basically, to these programs by tier. The first tier is what's called pre-college programs. So they are academically rigorous programs hosted by universities that allow students to take college level courses in medical and STEM fields, often at Ivies or other top tier schools. So basically, you spend about 2 weeks or so taking college level courses at a university. Okay, you don't do much else, but you go and sit down, learn a couple things about a course, and you maybe have a test or a project at the end. The examples that I have, and these are some, obviously none of these examples I'm going to give are exhaustive, but they're just to give you an idea of what these look like. You have a Harvard Summer School in the medical sciences, UPenn Biomedical Research Academy, Stanford Pre-College Institute, and Duke Summer Biomedical Program. These are wonderful programs that I've had students apply to. Check them out, but there are certainly other ones. And any top major program that you're thinking about in university has a pre-college program. Just Google it and you'll find what they offer. There's a lot of flexibility there. Next, internships. So internships are programs that provide clinical exposure, hospital experience, or direct patient interaction, giving students insight into the medical profession. So they're basically like volunteer positions, but you get paid ideally with some of these internships, and you're a lot more involved in a certain like area or job or environment that they put you in. Okay, and they help get you real world experience beyond just shadowing, because shadowing is like in the name. And again, I have another video describing shadowing, all of it, but shadowing is in the name. You're shadowing somebody, you're just like around them and watching what they do. But internships actually have you be responsible for a certain outcome and do things, so they're really valuable. Examples include Stanford's clinical summer internship, NIH high school medical internship, Rady's Children's Hospital internship, Georgetown Medical Academy, Mayo Clinical High School internship. Again, many, many examples out there. Just Google it. Look, there are many nuances to these things: pricing, where they are, location, eligibility in terms of age and where you live, things like that. Look at all these things, but these are just some examples. Now, the ideal part of these tiers that you want to be at will be summer research programs. And I talked about these in the roadmap. So these are intensive, selective programs that place students in university labs or medical research projects, helping them build a scientific spike in a specific area of medicine. So the reason that these research programs are super valuable is because by design, they're meant to have you be responsible for a particular project, for you to hypothesize a certain outcome, build the whole project, the research project, and then have a tangible outcome in the end, like a paper or a research presentation, or an abstract that you can present somewhere or submit. That's why it's super important. And it's honestly, it's a major differentiator for BSMD admissions. And to be real with you, it's like almost a requirement at this point for BSMD programs. It's wonderful and it's super important to have if you're applying to Ivies or pre-med programs, but for BSMDs, you almost certainly need to have this. So that's why it's important. It doesn't have to be a summer research program. It just needs to be some research, but most of the research you're going to do is likely going to be over the summer. Some of these examples, and these are some of the most competitive and top programs, but they're great if you get into it, including RSI at MIT, Simmons Summer Research Program, the High School Internship Program at NIH, Garcia Research Scholar Program, and Jackson Lab Program. These are some of the most competitive. I suggest when you do this, don't apply to this after your freshman year. You're not going to have any of the experience. You're going to get rejected. Think about these later on in your junior year, the summer after junior, and the summer after your sophomore year as well. And apply to a balanced list. Apply to some very selected ones and some lower selectivity ones so you have a good chance of getting in. All right, so how are you going to actually approach this and plan out how to apply to these programs? First of all, we talked about develop a grade and niche appropriate list. That means you need to put together a list of programs that are appropriate for your grade. So again, if you're a freshman, you're going to focus on those pre-college summer programs and potentially the internships. Afterwards, you're going to really focus on the research summer programs and niche appropriate, right? Apply to programs that are relevant to your niche, global health, rural medicine, AI, whatever that is. Next, identify recommenders. People are going to write your LORs because most of these programs are going to ask for it and require it. So identify that science teacher and that research mentor. And it's great if you can do this early on, just planning ahead. Even as a freshman, plan ahead for like a year later to ask some of your science teachers if you think they'll write you a good one. Essays. You're going to be writing a bunch of essays for these programs. Make sure that you show depth and impact. For example, you want to say, I want to develop AI-driven prosthetics for veterans, which is a lot better than saying, I love medicine or I want to help people. Okay. And I recommend you apply to at least four, if not more, programs just to give you a balanced approach and to give you the best chances of getting accepted. The top programs have single digit acceptance rates, around 5%. You need to diversify your options, just like when you apply to colleges, you want to apply to a bunch of schools. And this is at least four per summer, not overall. You could also cold email professors. I also recommend this. So everything I mentioned is through a very traditional route. You go to online to some portal and submit an application and find out if you got in or not. But there's also, you can make an opportunity happen. If you find a professor at a university who's doing research that you're interested in, email them. Yeah, you're going to have to email a lot of people, but email them and ask them, hey, I'm so and so, and I want to learn a little bit more about what you do. Do you have any opportunities as a high school student for me to get involved in your life? That's going to be amazing if you get it because it really shows that you're proactive. You have the initiative to reach out to somebody there. And likely, if that's a university you want to apply to, it's going to look really, really good when you apply. Okay, so what can you do right after this? First of all, I mean, see where you are in the year, but if you're at the time where you need to be looking at summer programs, pick 5 to 7 programs that fit your niche. Even by the way, if you find a program that whose deadline has passed, just keep tabs on it for next year. It could be a good one. Next, outline essay themes for each application. Looking at the essays for each one of them, they'll ask you different things like what your academic majors or interests may be, what your passions are, what you want to do. Think back to your narrative, to your niche that we talked about, and see how you can answer these within the theme of the application. Check the deadlines. Most of them are December to February, except for many of the pre-college ones have rolling admissions, so that means you can apply to it pretty much any time of the year, except for the summer when they start. And finally, again, email professors for research opportunities. Sit down, look at some of the universities that you may be interested in, look at the professors in the major you're interested in. So like, let's say you want to do chemistry as a major, then go to, let me use Brown this time. Go to Brown's website, look at the chemistry department, look at the faculty, and look at each faculty's like research area, and then you could look at their research website. They have, every lab has their own website about like what projects they do and figure out what they want to do. So make that list and start emailing people. All right, I'll see you in the next video.